Hello and welcome to a brand new show of IRM, India Revival Mission, the show on which we debate, ideate, discuss that what can bring India back on the growth map. 2020 was a difficult year. Will 2020 be a year where India grows, but grows better than the world? Or it's going to be one of those years where we would latch on to a base effect and a little bit of economic recovery? Given that budget is around this corner, what is the importance of scrappage policy for the entire CV industry? And if CV sales are anything to go by, how should one read into the December data which CV manufacturers have reported? To discuss all that and much more, it gives me great pleasure to bring on board Mr. Vipin Sondhi of Ashok Leyland. Mr. Sondhi, it's the first time I'm interacting with you on this forum on ET Now, so very warm welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Nikunj. Thank you for having me, and it's a great pleasure.
Mr. Sondhi, if the December dispatch numbers are anything to go by, can I safely assume that the CV industry, not only it has bottomed out, now genuine growth is back?
So, Nikunj, it's a good question. Would I say bottoming out? The answer is yes. Having said that, in Q3, the CV industry was pretty much coming almost on a par with Q3 of last year, but far away from the peak of 2 years ago. So if you look at this, the CV industry actually had a degrowth for the last 2 years. And then, of course, completely during the pandemic period. So we are now coming back to last year, which was a degrowth over the previous year. Are we coming back to better levels of growth? The answer is yes.
Okay. In your mind, are CV sales a lead indicator or a lag indicator of the economy? Because CV sales historically have been used by economists to judge the velocity of the economy and how exactly things are moving.
Yeah, I think pretty much a lead indicator, Nikunj, and let me tell you why. We've also got to divide, commercial vehicles into different segments, which then have their own trajectories. So if I might take light commercial vehicles first. Light commercial vehicles are gaining in traction faster. They came back earlier and possibly driven by e-commerce, because a lot of us are now ordering at home, staying at home and getting things delivered. So you have warehousing coming up and therefore deliveries in the last mile. Then you look at tippers. Tippers go into infrastructure. And we can see the way construction equipment is doing well, tippers are doing well as well. Intermediate commercial vehicles, which we call medium, they are somewhere in the middle. And finally, the long haul, the multi-axles, the big tractors, etc. Now we are seeing some green shoots coming in Q4. So each has its own, own way of growing, even within the CV space. But it's certainly a lead indicator because we carry cement, we carry steel, we carry cars, we carry scooters, and a whole host of essential items in the economy. So it is a lead indicator.
CV sales are also very sensitive in terms of interest rates. Given that interest rates are in record low, even the rates for second-hand financing is at a record low, one would argue that why CV sales have only started showing uptick from the month of December, while rest of the auto sector, whether it is two-wheelers or four-wheelers, all of them actually bottomed out way before the CV cycle bottomed out.
Let me try and answer that. Interest rates alone don't determine commercial vehicle sales. Interest rates, or let's say an NBFC, which finances commercial vehicles, is an important factor in the purchase cycle of any consumer durable, and certainly CVs being one of them. If you look at the entire auto sector, again, if you were to break it into four parts, the four-wheelers and two-wheelers really picked up before the festive season. We've also got to then see what happened to public transport. So buses were down 90%. More and more people, apart from the pent-up demand, were buying vehicles for personal travel. I think that was a great impetus also to four-wheelers and to two-wheelers itself. Having interest rates low will come in now going forward when there is a demand pull in any case. And then that demand gets, let's say, a bit of a vehicle to travel on with lower interest rates.
Fair point. The raw material prices also have gone really higher beyond expectations. Who would have thought 3-4 months ago the price of steel and other basic items which are used in a truck would go up exponentially. Are you enjoying pricing power, or you'll have to compromise your margins given that you want to right now retain your market share?
Nikunj, it's a very interesting question, and it's not that commodities are only going up; they're going up in substantial rates. And whether you look at October, but when you look at the January cycle as well, in conversations with both steel and other non-ferrous metals as well, so this will certainly have an inflationary impact. The CV industries, as demand comes back, will have to calibrate itself in terms of what the customer can afford. We've got to remember that on 1st April, when BS6 came in, the cost of CVs went up because of BS6 itself. So it is the affordability of the consumer, and we'll have to strike a balance. Will there be an impact? I think there would be some impact till it starts getting played out into the market quarter by quarter.
Mr. Sondhi, if I look at the e-way bill data, there are a lot of categories where freight actually has normalized to pre-COVID levels. However, there seems to be a market share shift towards road freight rather than rail freight. Is my observation right? And is this a trend in making, or we should not read too much into it?
You're right about the fact that freight rates are now coming back, and it definitely is. It's heartening for commercial vehicles, heartening for road freight. But remember, we've got to see this over a longish period of time, the balance between road and rail. What CVs definitely provide is door-to-door delivery, hub and fork kind of spoke models that work on road much faster in terms of the way it is. But you've also got to see that, you know, things like large commodities like cement, steel, etc., would use rakes as well. So it's going to be a combination. It's going to be an interesting combination as both these heavy infrastructure items develop, and each one finds its own place in the economy. But for both, I think it will be positive in the medium term.
Do you see a scrappage policy coming soon? And if that comes, will that really make a significant difference?
Nikunj, this question has been asked for the last few years, but if I were to have a look at 2 weeks before the budget, I think the chorus for a scrappage policy is getting louder. Now, the question really is, in what form does the scrappage policy come? Is it an incentive-based policy? And that will also determine the rate at which vehicles, old vehicles, that is pre-BS6, are replaced. I think the bigger thing is, will it act as a demand trigger for the CV industry over a period of time? Because scrappage centers have to be developed as well. But when you look at it from a circular economy standpoint, when you look at it from an overall environment commitment, not only of the industry or the company, but of the country is concerned, then it will set in motion a very positive circular cycle where you start with raw material, then the whole thing goes back to scrap, goes back to the steel furnaces, comes back as steel, and starts all over again. In this whole cycle, CV will be there, and as will all auto industry and other, let's say, other steel using items be there as well, to ensure that we have a growth cycle that will kick in. It will take some time for the infrastructure for scrappage centers to develop, but it will be positive.
Mr. Sondhi, a number which SIAM releases is the market share data for the entire industry. Your market share in 2014 was 26, then it went up to 35-36%, it's gone down to 27. Is there a conscious move that you are trying to be more profitable at the cost of market share gain, or you are now working very hard towards getting the market share back?
So, Nikunj, it's a combination of both. Our Avatar model, which is the BS6 that we've launched recently, is a model which is modular. It is way ahead in terms of technology of anything that is being offered in the Indian market today. Now, this will add a lot of value, not only to the customer who can actually design his or own vehicle for the needs that he or she needs, but will also help in terms of parts, in terms of manufacturing, and in terms of the supply chain. We will value sell this product. At the same time, we will obviously keep an eye on market share. That is equally important. But at every point in time, we will sell this as a technologically ahead vehicle. We're getting very good reports in terms of the fluid economy. And I'm saying fluid because of the use of diesel, but also because of the use of AdBlue, which is required in BS6. And that is showing encouraging numbers in terms of the saving that the customer can get over a period of, let's say, 12 months, which is a reasonable period. Once all of this is established, you will find both of these going up together because there will be a value to a distinctive value to the truck that we will be selling.
The first impression for any investor about a CV company or a truck company is that it's a cyclical business. If the economy does well, the business will do well. If the economy gets slightly off track, there would be impact on it. And that's really been the trend for a truck maker or a CV maker for the longest time I can remember. How are you looking at reducing your dependence on the cyclicality of the business?
You know, there are trucks and there are trucks. Nikunj, it's a very valid question and it's a good question. If you see the light commercial vehicle range that we introduced about 8 or 9 years ago, and which in the BS6 version we've had the Dost gaining in market share, and now we have something called the Bada Dost, which we launched in September. So that's one part, is that the range of which what we will offer, and LCVs don't follow necessarily the same cycle as, let's say, the long haul does. The LCV is bought by individual or retail customers, as we call it, who those affected by e-commerce or those affected in the villages by agri, which is now pulling light commercial vehicles. So to some extent, within CVs, there will be an addition to, let's say, stemming against the cyclicity of the business. The second part, which is extremely important, is that both the Avatar as well as the Dost platform are package protected for both right-hand drive and left-hand drive. So we are increasing our play into countries which are more naturally inclined to the Indian market, which is Middle East and Africa. Did we have a base? Yes, but we are intensifying that base. That's another, let's say, important step to get into international markets, which will in some way reduce the cyclicity. We are in the defense business, as you know. We are looking at and have been in mobility for a long time. We're wanting to strengthen the mobility platforms as we get further and further into the defense business. So there are several measures that we are taking to try and move away from a lot of cyclicity. We've got the power solutions business. For agri-harvesters, for example, we have a 95% share in terms of sale of engines into that business. We're selling engines into construction equipment. That business is also growing very, very well. So we're looking at several ways of de-emphasizing when a cycle stems in.
Export accounts for 7% of your total sales. Given that Indian companies have a genuine edge, at least Indian auto companies have a genuine edge in exports, can that number go up significantly? Because if I look at the success story of a Bajaj Auto, even Maruti, auto is something where Indian companies have really got it right.
You're right about it. And we are certainly looking at enhancing that number. I won't give numbers right now, but there is a focus team which is working on international operations. As we speak, we are appointing large distributors of cluster of countries in Africa. In the Middle East, we have a plant that already operates. So all in all, that part of the business will certainly enhance these percentages going forward.
Tesla has already made a prototype for a EV truck. Now we know what they've done to the car business. Siddharth Lal told me a few days ago that they are also looking at coming up with a EV motorbike. Can I assume that in the next 2-3 years, Leyland is going to be coming out with a EV truck?
So let me start first with EV buses. We already operate, we've got a large team. We already operate, build and operate EV buses in Ahmedabad. They've been running for a few years now, in Chennai, and soon to be in Patna. But we did about a month and a half ago announce the setting up of Switch Mobility, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Ashok Leyland, which will focus on EV buses, which will be the global arm of Ashok Leyland, which EV buses, as well as eLCVs. We see an important part to be played not only in India, but in other parts of the world. India will be a major source of engineering as well as manufacturing for Switch Mobility, which is headquartered out of UK. So I must mention to you that we have a company called Optare, which makes metro decker buses in the UK, both diesel and electric, and we've split this company. So Switch Mobility will be only electric vehicles, essentially buses and LCVs based out of the UK. We're still getting necessary approvals for it, statutory approvals for it, but that's the plan going forward. The teams are being integrated both in the UK and in India in terms of their capability to design and develop. But India will play a huge role. Our colleagues in India will play a huge role as well.
So I'm just trying to understand the definition of Ashok Leyland, let's say 5 years from now. Hypothetically, if we are engaging in a conversation in 2025, what will change for Ashok Leyland? You have used the word mobility quite extensively. So what is your definition of mobility? I mean, is it something very disruptive which will change Ashok Leyland, or it's going to be incremental changes?
It's certainly, nothing can be very incremental now. Every company will be a tech company. Every company will use digital as a basis. Every company will provide solutions which use digital platforms as a basis as well. But people will always remain the heart and soul of the organization. So when we look at Ashok Leyland going forward, there will be a lot of focus, as I mentioned. It may be through subsidiaries, it may be directly by Ashok Leyland, a huge amount of focus on the electric vehicle basis, which is buses, eLCVs. Diesel will continue to be very, very important, not only in India, but in other parts of the world. And we will obviously be looking at alternative fuels as well, which are blends. If in the Indian context, could be blended diesel, could be other forms as well. But I think solutions will play a big role as well. For us, opportunities are there. Tremendous opportunities are there for bundling solutions for our customers. And we already have a telematics platform, as you know. So you're going to get more and more solutions going into the space, into the Ashok Leyland space as well, for better serving our customers.
Ashok Leyland has been present in the defense space, and that in a sense also re-rated the stock when Prime Minister Modi in his first term really talked about the defense opportunity or the defense business. But frankly, it's not become as big as all of us thought a couple of years ago.
We are in the mobility platforms space, Nikunj. I think it's important to understand that we make the 4x4, the 6x6, 8x8, 10x10, 12x12, the Stallion vehicles, and we will continue to ensure that we have platforms in service on the mobility basis, which could be bulletproof vehicles, could be other light strategic vehicles, which we will see as we go along. But we are at the moment in the mobility space, and that's where we plan to go. The challenge really in other spaces is the long lead time and approval process to any product and multiple points of contact. But I'm sure that the mobility space itself offers adequate opportunity for us to grow, and we're very strong, very committed to that part.
One big disruptive change is going to be the direct freight corridor, and it's going to be large capacity which gets added. That capacity is going to be built at scale, well connected and very fast. What does that mean for the CV industry?
I think as I mentioned earlier, actually, the DFC, etc. The DFC initially will take load of the main tracks, which is really the tracks meant for passengers, and will start using that load first as far as the rail in the DFC is concerned, or the weight in the DFC is concerned. I think, as I mentioned, both will coexist. The CV companies will have to provide better service, but definitely the service at the first mile and the last mile as well in some of these areas. But I think for a large country like ours, CVs will continue to play a big role. There is some work that's going on to understand the assessment over the next 5 to 10 years. And we are seeing that CVs are here to stay according to that estimate, while the DFC will continue to go on its own journey, but will take really load off to make passenger trains much faster and much more convenient.
As you migrate from a traditional auto company to a mobility stroke technology company, what happens to your cash flows? Are you investing upfront aggressively and cash flows could remain suppressed with a promise that in 2023, 24, 25, you will enjoy the fruits of current sowing?
Every business runs on cash, and therefore we obviously always have a close look at the way we manage cash, and will continue to do it. Now, we've come off a significant investment cycle of last year on both the BS6 technology intervention as well as the platform intervention in terms of what we call the Phoenix platform, on which the Dost and the Bada Dost have been built, and the modular platform on which Avatar has been built. So in a sense, these platforms will spawn more and more products out of them. That's on the diesel front. On the EV, yes, we will continue to spend, and on digital, we will continue to spend while ensuring that we have a good eye on what is required to manage a business, which is a positive cash flow.
Okay, so just two more follow-up questions, Mr. Sondhi. Historically, the way we've understood the Ashok Leyland model is that we've looked at cement prices, we've looked at the economy, we've looked at market share gain, discounts in the system, and then we arrive at your margins or your growth assessments. When you're morphing to a technology company, you're moving into defense, you are coming up with new platforms, what changes for you? What are the changes which would be natural, which we are not realizing, but something which will change the way how your future EPS and earnings would move?
I think a lot of value that technology will provide. People will pay for value. If you look at the modular basis on which the Avatar runs, and very few companies in the world have that modular basis, it will bring in efficiencies right across the value chain, which I mentioned, starting from the supply chain through to the plant, through to the customer, who can actually define the cycle for which he or she wants to use the truck. Short hauls, long hauls, whatever, you design your fuel tank accordingly. So all of that can be modularly developed. So how do you bring in a lot of value add while eliminating wastage in the value chain that you develop? I think that's going to be extremely important. The second is obviously a huge focus on both on frugal design as well as frugality in the way we create assets, in the way we operate assets. So there has been a lot of focus, but we continue to focus. We've got something called a reset program going on during this period, which is looking at every element of, not of cost, but of how do we enhance the value with which we bring in and then run efficiencies across all our operational points. So cost and operational efficiencies will be a big part. Frugality in design, frugality in the way we do every part of our business, and spend CapEx extremely wisely. Ultimately, it will be to provide value to the customer through technology and through solutions and get a better net sales realization.
So closing comments, we're not going to extend our appointment beyond this. When will this new business, solution stroke technology business, will form at least 10% of your revenue?
I won't give you timelines like that. We already have a customer solutions business within the company for the last 3 or 4 years. this customer solutions business is continuing to grow. How we take it forward is something that we are obviously discussing internally. How do we give it a greater kick? As far as technology is concerned, that will be a continual development, but in three parts. While we have diesel, we will have blended, and we've got EVs, and then we look positively for any other form of renewables that will come in. This entire platform of digital, which we thought pre-pandemic was accelerating, post-pandemic, it's just become normal. It's something that is the way we are living and the way you and I are interacting today. So we will be obviously using these platforms to enhance the solutions and enhance the productivity of our company as well. But we'll see how this develops, but I'm sure it's going to develop rapidly.
I'm sure it will. Good luck, sir. Thank you very much and have a wonderful year ahead.
Nikunj, thank you very much, and to you as well.